coming around, or is this just more and more cope? Guys, I have done a lot of videos, maybe 4 or 5 total, on Bill Maher and his sudden, I guess you could say, red pilling on certain issues. But I'm here to let you know right now that this right here, for the most part, is cope because he is somewhat responsible. In some cases, you could argue he's very much responsible for a lot of the thinking that goes on today, especially in liberal circles. You see, liberals have a tendency to get more and more radicalized, and we'll be talking about that here in a second after we watch some bits and pieces of this monologue from Real Time with Bill Maher tonight, because obviously he's trending once again, because obviously he has triggered the wokes. Now, let me go ahead and say this. Bill Maher has never been conservative on any level at all. Now, me personally, I don't have a problem with classical liberals. I never have been, as long as they kind of sort of how do I say, respect the position I have, why I'm forced to respect the position they have. There are some out there who don't force you to do that, who actually do respect it and will, of course, defend your right to free speech. But Bill Maher has always been a bit of a different animal, in my opinion. Now, granted, he's a comedian, even though I've never really truly thought that he was actually funny. Even today, even though he's saying some things I quite frankly think the Democrats need to be saying to far left radicals all the time, I just can't seem to find myself actually thinking that he is funny, even though I do think he's definitely gotten a lot smarter by virtue of seeing what is going on around him, even though, of course, he kind of sort of helped create some of the stuff that's going on today, especially as far as in the woke circles. But we're going to watch this really quick, and then we're going to come back to the other side, and I want to go ahead and kind of comment and kind of like let you guys know why it is that everything that Bill is saying, while it may be true, there's no way he's going to be able to fix this.
Today's woke revolution, you need to study the part of revolutions where they spin out of control because the revolutionaries get so drunk on their own purifying elixir, they imagine they can reinvent the very nature of human beings. Communists thought selfishness could be cast out of human nature. Russian revolutionaries spoke of the new Soviet man who wasn't motivated by self-interest, but instead wanted to be part of a collective. No, it turns out he wanted to be on a yacht in a Gucci tracksuit holding a vodka and a prostitute. Not standing in line all day for a potato. The problem with communism, and with some very recent ideologies here at home, is that they think you can change reality by screaming at it.
Guys, as I have said, Bill, to a certain degree, is kind of sort of, at least as far as I'm concerned, somewhat responsible for a lot of what you're seeing. You see, it starts with having the classical liberal position, which is fine. It's no big deal. Just a little bit more liberal than others. You question others, and of course, sometimes those questions are actually quite valid and quite necessary. Okay, then you go to, I guess you could say, question the establishment. Okay, that's cool, good to go. I question the establishment all the time too, so therefore you and me are not that different. But then next thing you know, you go from being pro-free speech and pro-anti-war to all of a sudden, in a very authoritative way, I got to be anti-war. I've got to be very, very pro-speech. My speech matters more than your speech. You know, you can't say this, you can't do that right there, but I can. At some point in time, it just begins to look like it's, quite frankly, just good old-fashioned hypocrisy. Bill kind of played around in that circle, and of course, he donated to very, very liberal politicians. He backed the liberal regime. He was very, very much an Obama fan. He did all that stuff. And of course, let's not forget that Bill Maher, also when Donald Trump was in office, right before the C19 or C91, I got to word it differently, he was rooting on the recession. He had massive amounts of TDS. And of course, he's largely responsible for a lot of the things that we're going through today. So right there off the bat, you already know that, quite frankly, I'm probably going to look at Bill with a bit of a, how do I say, kind of a cockeyed type look, as if to say, hey, look, dude, you're somewhat responsible for a lot of the crap that we're going through. But is anything that Bill Maher said in that little monologue false? Not really. There are a lot of differences between the commies of today and the commies of the Mao regime, the commies of the Stalinistic regime, the commies of the Khrushchev regime. I mean, if you want to, you could even argue that even Mussolini and Hitler, to a certain degree, were communists, even though one was a Nazi and one was a fascist. You see, communism, fascism, and National Socialism, and socialism itself, they all come from the same place, Marx. All you got to do is go look at the writings of Giovanni Gentili to know that the same guy who created fascism is the exact same guy who was also an ardent Marxist. They all come from the same frickin' bird. I don't want to hear anybody say that right-wing fascists exist when you actually clearly, when you read the text, you see that fascism actually comes from the left, which I think is closer to what we're dealing with today. You see, I can do whatever the hell I want, but you cannot. It's called hypocrisy. Communism, of course, the communists of those days versus the communists of today are a little bit different. You see, back in those days, in the days of the Soviet Union, do you tell you right now what the communists used to do? Are you ready for this? They frowned upon homosexuality. As a matter of fact, homosexuality itself is still very, very much frowned upon in Russia, even though Russia is not a communist country. You could argue that it's very, very much an oligarchy country. You could argue very, very much that it is not exactly what we call a very democratic country. You could argue that Putin, of course, is a thug. You could argue that the regime itself is quite thuggish, but at the same time, they kind of look down upon certain things that the communists, the woke revolutionaries of today, are actually very, very much fond of. I mean, no way, shape, or form would Lavrenti Beria or Vyacheslav Molotov or Malenkov or Stalin or Khrushchev. In no way, shape, or form would they be okay with this whole pride mess. They would not be okay with any of this crap at all. As a matter of fact, they'd actually bend you over and they'd probably put a bullet in you. View you as a traitor to the country, view you as a freak, and they try to get rid of you. That right there is who the communists were. So to all you woke revolutionaries who think you're launching some type of communist invasion, it looks actually, quite frankly, a little bit more fascistic than it does communistic.
Lincoln once said that you can repeal all past history, but you still cannot repeal human nature. But he's canceled now, so fuck him. Yesterday, I asked ChatGPT, are there any similarities between today's woke revolution and Chairman Mao's Cultural Revolution of the 1960s? And it wrote back, how long do you have? Because, again, in China, we saw how a revolutionary thought he could do a page-one rewrite of humans. Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being. A lot of pointing and shaming went on. Oh, and about 1 million dead. And the only way to survive was to plead insanity for the crime of being insufficiently radical, then apologize and thank the state for the chance to see what a piece of shit you are. And, of course, submit to re-education, or as we call it here in America, freshman orientation. Listen to this story. There's a law professor at the University of Illinois, Chicago, named Jason Kilborn, whose crime was that on one of his exams, he used a hypothetical case where a black female worker sued her employer for race and gender discrimination, alleging that managers had called her 2 slur words, the type of real-world case these students might one day confront. And knowing the extreme sensitivity of today's students, he didn't write the 2 taboo words on the test, just the first letter of each. He was teaching his students how to fight racism in the place where it matters most, the criminal justice system. But because he merely alluded to those words, again, in the service of a good cause, he was banned from campus, placed on indefinite leave, and made to wear the dunce cap. No, not really the dunce cap part, but our American version of that. 8 weeks of sensitivity training, weekly 90-minute sessions with a diversity trainer, and having to write 5 self-reflection papers. A grown-ass man, a liberal law professor. If you can't see the similarities between that and this, the person who needs re-education is you.
And here comes the people who say that Adolf Hitler and National Socialists and fascists didn't exactly like people of that lifestyle. And my response to them is, okay, if they didn't like people of that lifestyle, then why the hell have you adopted their ideology? Why in the hell have you done that? You see, nobody right now in this world at this moment in time more full of shit than what we call the American communists. You see, these people complain about living conditions. Meanwhile, they're morbidly obese. Meanwhile, the person who lives in North Korea, who actually lives under real communism, can't eat any skin and bones. I'm pretty sure some of you guys have heard some of the actual stories that come out of that country, but then again, though, it's people like myself who hear these stories and not the actual commies themselves who actually want to pay attention to this. So, as I have said before, nobody more full of crap right now than the American-based communists who really, in a lot of ways, is just a good old-fashioned fascist. The thing is this right here. These U.S. commies, these U.S. fascists, these U.S. but really just suburban white kids, the vast majority of them have not actually had it rough in their life. Now, I could understand if somebody, say, I don't know, like in the streets of New York or the streets of Chicago, who may be a man or a woman of color who's had to live on some form of government assistance their entire life because, well, I don't know, what is it? They've had a very, very hard life. They've lived in a very, very bad state. I could understand why they may feel like, you know, I need a hand up, or man, you know, maybe I need a handout to kind of help me get through this. I can understand this. Of course, the woke revolutionaries, who, by the way, are mostly suburban college kids, were raised by parents who, of course, had college degrees themselves. They're very much in the enlightened, intelligent area, the intellectual area of society. And, of course, they raise just pure, flat out garbage, as you guys see every day on the streets of the United States. Streets, I didn't mean to say streets. What I meant to say is colleges, because we all know that colleges have turned into woke indoctrination camps. Of course, my roots are mostly blue collar. But then again, though, I did go to college. I did get my degrees. I got 2 degrees, but I don't come up here and brag about them. I will bring them up every now and again in case somebody wants to say that, well, dude, you're just an uneducated rube. Okay, I'm an uneducated rube. Okay. I was a high school dropout, got my GED, joined the United States Marine Corps when I was 18, did my 2 deployments, got out, worked a bunch of odd jobs, worked a bunch of retail jobs, service industries, even went through some of the same stuff that you guys claim that you are going through today, got up off my ass, went to college, got my associate's degree. Actually, let me take it back, went to college the first time for a year, failed out, went back later on another year, got my 2-year degree, then went through law enforcement academy, then turned right back around afterwards, worked more odd jobs because I couldn't get hired in the state of North Carolina on an actual law enforcement agency, and then I turned right back around and went back to college for 4 years. Technically, it was probably right around 5 because I did about 2 years in recreational therapy, and I did 3 years in sports studies. So trust me, when I've heard a lot of the arguments, which, by the way, get tossed around in cultural classes and sociology, trust me, I hear some of these arguments all the time. And while I may not be the best in the world at disarming a lot of these arguments, I can definitely spot when somebody is absolutely full of shit, which, of course, Bull Maher is completely full of shit in this case, because who the hell are you fooling, dude? You actually helped create these Marxists. I say one more time, that what the hell is going on here is that Bull Maher is simply coping with the cringy world that he, quite frankly, helped create. Now, let me go ahead and say one more thing. And I need to be very, very blunt about this. I said this in the video towards the end and talking about the Tim Pool quartering issue. I talked about Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker's not the only one. Cenk, the vast majority of these left-wingers on YouTube, David Pakman, Kyle Kulinski, the vast majority of these people kind of fashion themselves as being progressive, somewhat on the socialistic side of politics. But in reality, all these guys are actually quite rich. Do you know how they got rich? They got rich by grifting. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that Bull Maher is a grifter. I'm just saying I think he's full of crap, because if he's going to sit here and tell me that he's tired of this mess, I'll simply be here to remind him that it was his way of thinking that actually somewhat to a certain degree helped create the nightmare that we're in today. Like I said, this is the same guy who was rooting on a recession. He was upset that they impeached Donald Trump, not because they were trying to get him out of office, but because they actually made him stronger. You see, Bull Maher is very, very much responsible for a lot of the crap that we are going through today. This is one of the reasons why I, quite frankly, have no sympathy for the man. But to all you Democrats, to all you moderate or classical liberals who think that you have to moderate your own side, let me go ahead and tell you something right now. That right there would be good to do, and I would appreciate it if you did. However, the problem is that you've already sent these commie scumbags, or these fascistic scumbags, you've already sent them too far over the edge to the point to where they are not coming back. They are your problem. You deal with them. And by the way, when the crap hits the fan, and by the way, let me go ahead and kind of end this video on this note right here, because of course I wanted to make a project on this right here at some point in time, why debate was dead. Debate really and truly is dead. I've been seeing that America has had problems for years, many problems for many years. I'm just kind of like going through the motions at this moment in time until the things start whizzing across the sky, start whizzing across from. And by the way, that right there will mostly occur in the very, very blue, very, very liberal cities. That right there is where it's going to occur. So technically, Bill, these people are actually your problem. Guys, John Claymore, if you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, share the video south in the comment section. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Make sure you guys also hit the notifications bell. Please leave a comment in the comment section. I want to get you guys' thoughts. I'm always open for anything else, but my mind is pretty much made up. These people are here are completely too far gone. I don't think we can moderate them, and debate is definitely dead. Social justice warriors, piss off.